Okay. Before we get into the next part of the mimer, I realize we need a little bit of an intro to where we're going. During the Omer, we count the various days of the Omer, and they all correspond to parts of our character. And there are 49 parts of our character, of the soul's character, that we're trying to rectify during this time. The 49 parts of our character are comprised of 7 layers of 7 different kinds of emotions. So before going into the subcategories, which I tried to do yesterday, I want to go into the general categories today, and then we'll get into the subcategories hopefully at the end of the class. But I just want to touch on the general categories as explained in chapter 15 of Igersa Kodesh and Tanya. A human being, my father was a mechanic, Olva Shalom. He used to say the human being is like a car. Or a car is like a human being. It's so complex, so many different parts of a car. A car is still a car. A human being is more complex. So we talk about 7 facets of 7 different kinds of emotions. Beyond not only the 7 facets of 7 emotions, there's also more than one soul. There's a godly soul, there's intellectual souls, the animal soul. So there's 7 facets of 7 emotions in all 3 souls. So before we get to
part of the human being, we all have, every one of us has 3 souls.
Right.
Do the souls die when we die? Okay, sorry.
No, it's a good question, but let's try to focus on just understanding what the 7 facets are today.
Okay.
So the analogy that the Alter Rebbe brings in Tanya, in which he mentions all the 7 facets, is of a father wanting to give some lesson to his child. He loves his child. He wants to give his child a lesson. So that desire to give his child a lesson is called chesed. He wants to give. It's kindness. He wants to bestow something upon his child. But then there's also an element of gvura. Gvura means, well, what can my child handle right now? I want to give him this lesson. Is he able to handle it? So gvura is where the father is questioning whether or not the son is yet ready to receive. And then there is a third element, morning, called Sefiras. Sefiras means beauty, where the father says, maybe my son isn't deserving yet of this message. Hey, good morning, Dr. Bressman. Maybe he's not ready for this message yet. Maybe he's not able to handle this message. But I feel rachmanis. I feel bad for him. He's not able to get this message. I want to give it to him anyways. He's not ready for this yet. This is something he doesn't deserve to know yet. He's not up to the level of knowing this yet. But I want to give this to him anyways. I want to find a way. That's rachmanis. And it's called beauty because there's 2 emotions there. On the one hand, you're judging him. You're saying, is he ready for it? On the other hand, you're saying, I'm going to give it to him anyways. Now, it's easier for us to understand this in the context of a milkshake more than in this case of a lesson. It doesn't close, it's broken. So you don't want to give a child a milkshake because they don't deserve it. You want to only give them something which is going to build them, not something which is going to just make them spoiled. Okay, but also the previous Rebbe in his diary, he writes out many things that he asked his father, and his father said to him at many occasions, if you know everything when you're young, you'll become old very young. So there is an element of gvura, an element of judgment, of telling the child the right message at the right time. And then there is a third element where you say, well, okay, he doesn't deserve, he's not, but I want to give it to him anyways. As in these same stories, the previous Rebbe, where the previous Rebbe was so upset that he couldn't know the information he wanted to know when he was a child, and his father told it to him anyways. So that's that third element of telling, I'll tell you anyways, is racham. And racham is called beauty because there's 2 emotions there. Just like when something is beautiful, it requires a lot of color. So too, when something is only one color, it's not called beautiful. So too, because the Sefiras has more than one emotion at play, that's why it's called something that's beautiful. And that's also why the Sefiras is called in the Torah the name of Hashem. Yud Kei Vav Kei, God's name, is associated with a third Sefira, this third emotion of Sefiras. And that's because since in Sefiras there's two opposing emotions, in order to unite these two opposing emotions requires something infinite. So God's name, Yuke Vavke, which means God's transcendence, God's infinity, is related to this sphere of Sefiras, because to unite these two opposing emotions, it requires something infinite to join them together. So that's why God's name is associated with Sefiras, because you see God in the convergence of these two emotions. Then there is another two parts to this journey of the father giving this to the child. The father has decided he wants to give this to the child. He wants to. By the way, telling your children, I'll tell this to you and get older, doesn't always work. I know one child who told his teacher, I'll come back when I'm older. When you get older, you understand. Okay, and so talk to me then. The next two parts of the emotional tree, if you will, are the spheres, are in a different category. In Kabbalah is full of physical expression of spiritual ideas. So the next two parts of this transfer of information for the father to the child is Netzach and Hod. Netzach, which means victory, and Hod, which means submission. The reason why you need to have victory and submission in this transfer of information, you need to be victorious over the various voices within yourself which say, don't do it. Your gvura, your element of judgment is saying, you can't give it to him yet. He's not deserving of it yet. You have to have this netzach that say, no, I'm going to give it to him anyways. And there may be other also interferences. You're busy, you have a lot of things to do. So there has to be netzach and hod to submit yourself. I'm going to do this. In Kabbalah, netzach and hod are called the two testicles that cause the information of the child, of the father who wants to give to his child, they cause them to become coarsened, so that the information which is in the mind of the father will now be transmitted in a more physical, down-to-earth way. It won't just be something which is which the child can't handle. It will be processed in a way that will be, yes, the father decided he wants to give it to the child, but what is he going to give it to? He can't give the child the same information the way he has it. He has to contract it further to the level of the child. Netzach and Hod about making it about the actual implementation of this decision. I want to give it to my child, and I need to figure out how to do this. So just like Kabbalah says that the seminal drop comes from the brain, so too this initial decision of the father to give something to his child has to get processed in Netzach and Hod in order for it to be actionable, in order for it to be conveyed to the child. So it becomes coarsened. In Kabbalah also, Netzach and Hod are called a mill. Just like a mill takes wheat and grinds the wheat into tiny little pieces, so too the father needs to take that information, needs to grind it into little pieces in order to think how to bring this down. That's why also Netzach and Hod have another name in Kabbalah. They're also called the two advisory kidneys. I don't know why, but in general in the Torah, not just in Kabbalah, kidneys are called a place of advice. You know, Arya, why a kidney is called a place of advice? Yeah, sure. I don't know. So either way, the kids.
Coffee's good for the kidney.
Absolutely, it makes you go all the time.
Okay, so the kidneys are called Netzach and Hod are called the Kloyes Yoyetzeis, the kidneys of advice. That means they're actionable. They're now, okay, you want to do this? Let's talk about how to do it. We've already decided we're going to do this. Let's talk about how to do this, how to bring this down. That's the idea of grinding the wheat and bringing the wheat down. But after you've grinded it and you've overcome all challenges and you're ready to give it to your child, there's another element. That's yesod. Yesod means bonding, to bond with your child. The idea of bonding with your child, in Tanya, there's actually two different texts in the Tanya about what that means, bonding with your child. The Alter Rebbe, according to one version, compares the difference between a father studying information by he's learning out loud, he's studying a concept himself, or he's trying to give the information to his child. So he's contrasting this, maybe the same words. The father's saying exactly the same words, but he's learning by himself, or he is giving it over to his child. The Tzemach Tzedek he says in the Tzemach Tzedek's quote of Tanya, he takes out those words and he has the contrast in Tanya is different. To explain what bonding is, it's not about the difference between learning yourself and learning with your child. You can learn with your child too and not be bonding with him. You could also be talking to your child, but you're not really into him. You're not talking to him face to face with love and care. You really want your child to understand.
More like a coach.
Right, right. In bonding, there's this coach element, 100%. So the more the Gemara says a story. Who's the story about? About this tzaddik used to learn, had a student. Tell the story, no? Yeah. Yeah, tell the story.
You tell the story. Then one time, after 20 times, still didn't learn because Rabbi said he's in a hurry or something.
Okay, you're going too fast. I prayed at a student, and every day the student couldn't understand the class, so he would repeat the lesson 400 times, right? And one day, Rapredo told the student that I'm in a rush. He sensed he was in a rush. So after 400 times, he still couldn't get it because he felt his teacher was in a rush. So he taught him to him another 400 times. What was something happened as a result of that? What happened as a result of that?
The basketball wasn't having said he had a choice. He could keep it there with the model or
No.
But his children.
Yeah, and what happened? What did he decide?
He went for children.
One of his children.
Hashem
gave him both. Hashem gave him both the world to come and his children going path Torah because of this devotion to a student. So this is another element of the Sefiras bonding. The father wants his son to understand, and therefore he's into his son. The Kabbalists compare the connection of Hashem to Jewish people with physical intimacy, and how the more passion there is in intimacy, the more semen there is, and in a similar way, the more information is transferred with the father to the child. But the more the father cares to give to his child, the more he cares about his son, the more he gives his son. So then there is the actual bottom line delivery of the information to the child. That's called malchus. Malchus is where he's actually saying the words. So there's what he's putting into the words. There's a bonding element. Then there's the actual recital of the words. So that's all in the intellectual soul. That's only one element of one layer of understanding the Sefiras. Then in Tanya, in chapter 15 of Igeres HaKodesh, the Alter Rebbe now says, let's talk about how this is from the Neshama's perspective. What are all these Sefiras in the Neshama's perspective? This is all true from the intellectual soul's perspective, in the relationship of a father to a child and how he wants to give something to his child. Let's talk about how these Sefiras are in our Neshama's perspective, the godly soul's perspective. The godly soul also has 7 elements in its relationship to Hashem. First of all, there is an element of chesed, element of kindness, which means, as we discussed yesterday, it's simply being kind. It's when a person is kind, he cleaves to Hashem because Hashem is kind. The Torah says, cleave to Hashem. How should you cleave to Hashem? Do what Hashem does. Be what Hashem is. Hashem is kind, be kind. Hashem is called in Kabbalah, it's called the essence of goodness. And it's because he's the essence of goodness, therefore his nature is to do good. So be like that. Be good. Be kind. That's chesed. Then there's gvura. What's gvura? Rezev, I know if you heard about Aryeh just opened up his coffee cup. You missed a great opening over here. It sounds like huh? Okay, great. The Gemara, I'm sorry. So then there's a second element of gvura. Gvura is, the Torah says that you have to, gvura means, as we said before about the child, judging the child. So to the Torah talks about judgment in certain situations. The Torah tells a Jewish court to administer punishment. That's gvura. Administering punishment is gvura. Or overcoming your own evil inclination within yourself and saying, I am not going to do what I want to do. That's gvura. That's this idea of rejecting what your impulse is, rejecting what you're attracted to do. You will have that power of your godly soul to do that. That's gvura, your ability to sanctify yourself and to make a border and say, this is what I'm going to do this, and I'm not going to go further, because if I go further, I'm going to make a mistake. I don't want to have the coffee, because when I have the coffee, it puts me in a sour mood. And even though nothing wrong with the coffee, but if I had the coffee, it's going to lead to something else. That's just me. For you, it puts you in a good mood. You're great. So, but for me, I can have the coffee. The coffee's good. So I'm afraid to have. I like it, but I'm judging.
So you're going to refrain. Is that a good thing?
It's a good thing for me. That's called gvura. Gvura is the ability to you're afraid of Hashem. You don't want to go against Hashem. Therefore, you put a border in your life. Say, I'm not going to pass this border.
What does that have to do with Hashem, though? You rejecting it. I'm missing that. You rejecting.
Oh, because then I may make a mistake later, and I may be a little too irritable. I mean, have coffee makes me very irritable, and then you're gonna say kaddish and you miss a word and say hey, instead of saying hey. Okay. Then there's a third element in our service of Hashem, which is called Sefiras. What's Sefiras about? So there's a couple of elements in Sefiras discussed in Tanya. One is to beautify Hashem in His Torah. Like, for example, to get a beautiful Sefer Torah, a beautiful mantle, and a beautiful crown for the Torah. Also, it says in Tanya, the word Sefiras is related to the word to praise, to glorify Hashem with praise. That means in your thoughts, in your words, in your heart, to think about the wonder, how wonderful Hashem is. That's all part of Sefiras. The beauty of godliness, the beauty of Hashem. So in our service of Hashem, it's about beautifying mitzvahs, getting the best mezuzah, the best film, the best esrog, and also not just what we do, but how we feel, feeling the beauty of Hashem, feeling the greatness of Hashem. That's Sefiras. In the language of Chassidus, to look at the glory of the King, the preciousness of Hashem's greatness, preciousness of the beauty of His greatness. Okay, then there's Netzach. What's Netzach mean? Victory. Victory means to overcome any obstacle in your service of Hashem. Gvura was just about judging what's right and what's wrong. But then there is, as I came closer to the coffee, I said, this coffee is really good. What am I talking about? Coffee and me, we're best. That requires Netzach. Netzach means to be victorious. I'm not going to do this. It's about.
If you reject the coffee, you're
Yeah.
victorious.
In order to reject it, when you want it, in order to push something away that you're not supposed to have, that requires you not just to judge emotionally and say, I don't want to do this, but to have a more of a, just like we said before about Netzach and Hoyd, intellectual soul, they're called the testicles, they're more actionable, they're more about bringing it down. So to Netzach, victory is about not just making a decision emotionally, but actually pushing myself to do the right thing.
Okay, does the same thing apply to people who are, say, hooked on opioids, and they say, no, I'm not going to do it, it's not good for me?
Of course.
Okay.
Of course.
So, it's not good for you. Do you get kind of like get credit from that, or would you say much higher level, much more?
Yeah, we're talking about, like, you're comparing like an MK-47 and a Band-Aid, So yeah, the kind of netzach that those people have these incredible challenges need to have is they need to employ the full majesty of what victory is about to be who they are. Someone who's able to reject addiction. It requires that's a lot greater light.
A smoker who knows it's not good for him, so he just I'm not going to do it anymore.
Right. So there's the decision, then there's the force of the decision. The decision is gvura. Decision is a second.
Okay.
But the force of the decision to overcome the challenges, that's victory.
And is it our mission in life to overcome on this earth? We're supposed to overcome
our mission is to show up. Our mission is to do what Hashem wants us to do. To actually transform our feelings, that's not necessarily the mission of every person. The Alter writes in Tanya, it could be a person to live his whole life and always be fighting and never win. Meaning, I have the same challenges today, like they say in AA, one day at a time.
Mm-hmm.
So it could be I'm an addict my whole life, but I'm not indulging in my addiction my whole life. Understand?
So is that acceptable to Hashem if you overcome if the power be to overcome you?
Is it acceptable to Hashem to lose?
For the person to lose. Let's say that
Hashem wants us to win, though.
Now here's my question. say I'm a smoker. I'm really not, but say I'm a smoker, and I say I'm gonna quit. It's bad for my health. I'm not gonna smoke anymore.
Yeah.
But then maybe I'll have just this one.
Yeah.
So I'm going against Hashem by having that one.
If it's not good for you, then it's not what Hashem wants you to do. But let's not talk about guilt and Jewish guilt and going against Hashem.
All right.
Let's just say that it's not helpful. It's not helpful. But the focus on the negativity, the Jewish guilt thing, always brings us down. When we focus on the one, if you try to avoid that one cigarette, they tell you when you're learning how to drive, don't say I'm gonna to avoid that tree. The tree you're trying to avoid is the tree you're going to hit. So let's talk about the other flip side of the coin. When I'm victorious today and I don't have that cigarette with everything that I'm not supposed to have, when I'm victorious, what am I doing? I'm causing, it says in Tanya chapter 27, a light of godliness to come to the world that is far beyond what a tzaddik can bring to the world. A tzaddik can bring the incredible light that comes from darkness. Hashem specifically put us in a playing field where we have a challenge our whole life because He wants this incredible victory over negativity. What do you want to say, Dr. Bresson?
Yes. So yesterday I was thinking about worship, acid, and I was thinking, well, that's like doing exercises. So like a real pain you have to do, but it's too good for you. But now, what we say, how would you then classify what I was thinking about? Well, it could be exercise, dominating, whatever, doing something that's a little strange.
The Gevura is a decision. The Netzach is making it happen. To overcome the challenge, actually do it. When I'm in your office telling me how the evils of oatmeal with sugar, right? So it sounds all peaches and cream over there, but when I actually get the peaches and cream, I prefer them over the oatmeal. Okay.
But how would you classify that? Okay, if somebody does something, I gotta chop this wood because house needs spaces. Do you want? I gotta go to work because
The decision may be chesed or gvura, whatever it is. If it's something positive, it's chesed. If it's something negative, it's gvura. But implementation decision requires other spheres there as well. In order for something to come to practicality, it has to travel through the other spheres as well. There has to be other elements there for it to come to fruition. It has to go to Malchus, all the way down to the last sphere for it to get there.
So each one has to go to all of them?
Right.
Okay.
It's complicated, but for today, let's try to get through the other general spheres, then we'll get into details. The next sphere, just one more point. The Alter says in Tanya about victory. It's about being victorious. Anything that stops you from serving Hashem, anything that stops you from cleaving to Hashem, anything that stops Hashem's glory from filling the world. Like David HaMelech would fight the wars of Hashem. He fought wars so that Hashem's will should be fulfilled in the world. That's Netzach, actually fighting wars. Then there is Hod. Hod means submission. The Alter speaks about how we have to acknowledge the truth of Hashem, that Hashem animates and creates everything in the world, and everything in the world is totally nothing compared to Hashem. And although we don't feel that, we don't understand that, we know this is the truth. Hod is we submit ourselves to Hashem's truth. Modem anachnu, the truth is that Hashem is the reality and everything is insignificant before Him. Part of Hod also is appreciation. Thanking Hashem for all of His creations, thank Hashem for all the kindness He's done for us. That's Hod. Then there is something I'll say. Then there's Yesod. Yesod is bonding. What's bonding mean? That not only am I doing what Hashem tells me to do, but my neshama wants to cleave to Hashem. I could put on my tefillin, I could say the words, but imagine if I found I was thinking, it's just a random, happened more than once, but a yid is somewhere in prison and he finds a piece of a siddur. He doesn't just want to say the words of the siddur. For him, that's there's a connection there. There's something there that's beyond the words. That's what's supposed to happen whenever you daven. You're connecting to Eibishter, not just saying the words. The Alter says the lowest level of inspired davening is you want to connect to Hashem. So you might be saying the words of Ameir La'aras Damalal, maybe saying the words on Yitzchak Lavina, whatever the words are. But beyond the words, you want the connection with Eibishter. You desire the connection. That's your soul. You want a connection, and that's what's Malchus. Malchus means sovereignty. So in our service of Hashem, Malchus means to accept upon ourselves Hashem's sovereignty, like a servant accepts upon himself his master's sovereignty, to just do what Hashem says to do, to actually obey Hashem. That's the element of Malchus in ourselves. in our godly soul's experience. And all of these emotions that we discussed all come from Chabad. Chabad means our ability to understand Hashem's greatness, and our connection to understanding the greatness of Hashem is what animates all of these feelings. So that's how this is in our neshama. Now, in this mimer, we started yesterday to talk about the subcategories of chesed. So we only have a few minutes left. Let's try to do at least a few more of the subcategories of chesed. What we learned so far about chesed is chesed shebachesed. We're discussing so far the chesed shebachesed and gvura shebachesed and Sefiras shebachesed. As far as we got yesterday. Chesed shebachesed means not only do you love someone, but your love is expressed in a kind way. Not only do you feel feelings of kindness for someone, but deep in your heart, but it's palpable, it's tangible. You feel you are in love. You're in a moment. You feel the love for the other person. The other person could sense that, as in Tanya, that when you love someone, there in your heart, there's a reflection of that feeling of the other person. That's chesed shebachesed. And there's gvura shebachesed, where because you love someone, therefore you also hate those who oppose that person, those who hate that person. You hate the ones who hate your friend. Sefiras is those who love Hashem hate evil. Very nice. Then there is beauty of chesed. Beauty of chesed means because you love Hashem, therefore you want to use your chesed to do things for you want to give your money to things that will beautify Hashem in the world. You want to spread the Torah. You want to give tzedakah. You want to use your chesed. You want to use your chesed. You want to use your love for Hashem. You want to use your kindness to cause something beautiful to happen. Let me just find the tape. Start over again. Sefiras of chesed means because of your chesed, you want to, because of your love, you want to do something beautiful with your love. What's a beautiful thing you want to do with your love? You want to make something spiritual happen with your love. You want to do something beautiful with your kindness. Your kindness is causing beautiful to happen. Like Avraham Avinu, he didn't just give kindness to everybody. He gave kindness in a way that caused Hashem's name to be beautified in the world, people to praise Hashem. Okay, it's already 7 o'clock. Let me just say one more, just to keep our advertisement in place, so we can say we're going to do a little more at the end. Netzach of chesed means that I'm going to do this kindness no matter what. Nothing's going to stop me from doing the chesed. I want to do kindness. Netzach of chesed means, the victory of kindness means, I'm going to do this kindness and nothing's going to stop me. That's the victory of kindness. I have a feeling of kindness and I want to do kindness, but now there's an obstacle. Netzach of chesed means that I'm not just going to make promises about the kindness, I'm going to actually fulfill them. Any questions or comments, criticism, tomatoes or cucumbers? Yes, that. Go ahead. Levatzei means to implement. Levatzei is a chesed roi b'chol matziv. That's levakeya. Levatzei means to fulfill the chesed. And the appropriate kindness that I decide has to happen, I'm going to fulfill it no matter what. Loyally, nothing in the world will stop me from doing this chesed. Sorry, what do you want to say?
So basically, what you talked about today is the way we're supposed to behave, the way we're supposed to act.
Right.
Overcoming our innermost thoughts. If it's negative, forget it, fight it.
We also spoke about today about the tool set that Hashem gave us. We have all these things in us. Hashem gave us chesed, Hashem gave us gvura, Hashem gave us Sefiras. That's who we are. Our neshama has all these qualities in us. Right. And during this time of Sefiras Omer, Hashem gives us the ability to reveal all these different soul powers in the way that they're meant to be implemented. All right. Hazak Baruch.